at the end of the letter he signs off saying, you know, please reply and then I will know whether I should go on writing. Hi, my name's Esther. I'm a collections trainee with the Wordsworth Trust this year, and here I have a treasure of the collection, which is a letter from Branwell Brontë to William Wordsworth in 1837. You may know Branwell Brontë the best for being the brother of Charlotte, Emily and Anne Brontë, who wrote some famous novels such as Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Perhaps a lesser known fact about Branwell was that he was actually published about 5 years earlier than his sisters were with their debut poem collection. But the Brontë children did grow up seeing their name on books on the shelves, as their father Patrick was also a published poet of cottage poems. With a father who encouraged his children to read widely of the likes of Byron and Scott, it's really no wonder that the Brontë children grew up with such huge imaginations and with a desire to also follow in his footsteps. Even as children, the Brontë siblings were prolific writers with huge imaginations, creating whole fantasy worlds which they continued well into adulthood. So much of Branwell's poetry and much of Emily, Charlotte and Anne's, which was then published, had hints of these fantasy worlds as well. Although the Brontë children were all writers together, at 19 years old Branwell did want to find out whether he would make it among the literary greats and the romantic writers which he idolised so much. And one of those writers was Wordsworth, who he decided to address in 1837 to see whether Wordsworth thought there was any merit in his work. Branwell perhaps felt some affinity to Wordsworth in particular, as Branwell had grown up surrounded by the wild Yorkshire moors, as Wordsworth had been truly inspired by the lakes, which had influenced his writing, which had then influenced Branwell. In his letter to Wordsworth, it comes across as Branwell trying to prove himself as having, you know, this great mind that Wordsworth also had, trying to appeal to Wordsworth as a young man who was trying to make his debut, but so far not reaching the levels of literary fame that he perhaps dreamed of. He says things such as he sees reading as a real craving of nature, and when he writes it's out of impulse and he's not sure what's going to come next, he only knows that it will. All these things that he hoped would appeal to Wordsworth and, you know, influence Wordsworth to give him a reply. Unfortunately for Branwell, he may have overstepped the mark in some of the things that he did write to Wordsworth, such as saying that there wasn't a writer of the time who was worth a sixpence, and indicating that there might have been a better man who could step forward, such as himself, which Wordsworth does not seem to have taken very well. And then at the end of the letter he signs off saying, you know, please reply and then I will know whether I should go on writing. So it does seem that a lot of Branwell's worth in his writing was based on the opinions of others, and especially those who he looked up to. He wanted some sign that he could make it like they did, that he didn't have to, you know, go from job to job pursuing his career as an artist, which wasn't going to plan. He wanted to be told by someone who he felt was worth something that he too would eventually be worth something and would have his name on the shelves right next to Wordsworth. Branwell received no response from Wordsworth to his letter, perhaps because of his comment about there not being a writing poet worth a sixpence. Of course, now we know that Branwell never did achieve his dream of literary stardom and was in fact outshone by the genius of his sisters, Charlotte, Emily and Anne.